I'm 89 years old, and I'm going to tell you something that took me almost a lifetime to learn. The secret to peace isn't adding more to your life. It's removing what doesn't belong there. And I promise you, by the time I'm done talking, you're going to look at your own life and realize you've been carrying weights you never needed to pick up in the first place. My name is Eugene Caldwell. Folks around here have called me Gene since I was a boy running barefoot through the tobacco fields of North Carolina. I spent 38 years as a high school history teacher, then another 12 as a principal before they finally convinced me to retire. I've been married to the same woman for 63 years. Her name is Dottie, and she's sitting in the next room right now watching her game shows, probably wondering why I'm talking to myself again. We raised 4 children together, buried 1, and now we've got 11 grandchildren scattered across 5 states. I've lived long enough to see the world change in ways I never imagined, and I've learned that most of what I spent my life worrying about didn't matter one bit. Let me take you back to 1979. I was 43 years old, and I was the most stressed man in Cumberland County. I cared so deeply about what everyone thought of me, the school board, the parents, the other teachers, even the janitor, Mr. Hicks, who I was convinced didn't like me. I would lie awake at night replaying conversations, wondering if I'd said the wrong thing in a faculty meeting or offended someone with a comment I barely remembered making. I once spent an entire weekend convinced that Superintendent Morrison was going to fire me because he didn't smile when we passed in the hallway. An entire weekend of my life, gone, because a man was thinking about his lunch instead of greeting me. Then my mother passed. She was 81, still sharp, still telling me I needed a haircut every time she saw me. And at her funeral, my Uncle Roy pulled me aside. He said, "Your mama never wasted 1 minute of her life worrying about what other folks thought. She just lived." And I stood there in my black suit, holding a handkerchief I didn't need because I was too numb to cry, and I realized I had spent 43 years being a version of myself I thought the world wanted to see. My mother never did that. She wore house dresses to the grocery store. She laughed too loud at church. She said exactly what she meant and never apologized, and everyone loved her for it. So I started practicing. I said no without giving reasons. I stopped explaining myself. I let silences sit without rushing to fill them. And you know what happened? The people who mattered stayed. The people who were only there for the performance, they left. And my shoulders dropped about 3 inches. That's the first thing I stopped caring about. Other people's opinions. The second thing I stopped caring about was being right all the time. Now this one nearly cost me my marriage. You see, I was a history teacher. Facts were my business. Dates, names, causes, effects. Being right wasn't just a preference, it was my profession. And I carried that into every conversation at home. Every disagreement with Dottie became a debate I needed to win. Every discussion with my children became a lecture. I remember one Thanksgiving, must have been 1986, my son Michael said something about Vietnam. He was 22, thought he knew everything, and I corrected him. Then I corrected him again. Then I pulled out an encyclopedia to prove my point. And he looked at me with these cold eyes and said, "Dad, I don't want to be right. I just want to talk to you." The table went silent. Dottie excused herself to the kitchen, and I sat there with my encyclopedia feeling like the biggest fool in America. Being right doesn't make you happy. It makes you alone at a table full of people. I learned that lesson late, but I learned it. Now when someone says something I disagree with, I ask myself a question. Would I rather be right, or would I rather be close? The answer is almost always the same. The third thing I stopped caring about was keeping up with the Joneses. Actually, in my case, it was the Hendersons. Bill and Marjorie Henderson lived next door for 30 years. They had a new car every 2 years, a boat, a vacation home in Myrtle Beach, and I watched them through my kitchen window and felt this gnawing inadequacy. A teacher's salary doesn't buy boats. It buys used station wagons and summer trips to visit relatives. But here's what I learned at Bill Henderson's funeral 4 years ago. He died with $300,000 in debt. The boat was repossessed. The vacation home was mortgaged twice. Marjorie had to move in with her daughter because there was nothing left. And I went home that night and looked at my little house, paid off since 1998, and I felt something I hadn't expected: gratitude. I stopped chasing what other people had and started appreciating what I'd built. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine, and it was enough. The fourth thing I stopped caring about was holding grudges. And Lord, did I hold them? I held grudges like some men hold fishing rods, with both hands and no intention of letting go. My brother Walter borrowed $3,000 from me in 1971 and never paid it back. I brought it up at every family gathering for 20 years. Every Christmas, every birthday, every funeral, I found a way to mention it. And you know what that got me? 20 years of tension. 20 years of my children feeling uncomfortable around their uncle. 20 years of poison I kept drinking, hoping Walter would die. He didn't die. I did, a little bit, every time I brought it up. The anger didn't hurt Walter. He'd moved on before the ink was dry on the check. It hurt me. It lived in my chest like a stone. And when I finally let it go, when I finally decided that $3,000 wasn't worth 2 decades of bitterness, that stone dissolved. I could breathe again. Walter and I played cards together every Tuesday until he passed in 2019. Those years we got back were worth more than any money. The fifth thing I stopped caring about was looking the way I used to. I was a handsome young man, if I say so myself. Full head of dark hair, strong jaw, the kind of build that made Dottie notice me at a church picnic in 1959. And watching that fade, watching the hair turn white and thin, watching the jaw soften and the belly grow, it was like watching a photograph slowly bleach in the sun. I fought it for years. I bought creams and tonics. I did exercises from magazines. I sucked in my gut so hard I couldn't breathe properly. Then one morning, my granddaughter Sophie climbed into my lap and patted my cheek. She said, "Grandpa, your face is so soft, like a pillow." And she fell asleep right there, her little hand on my cheek. And I thought, this child doesn't see an old man losing a battle with time. She sees comfort, she sees safety, she sees love. I stopped fighting my body that day. I started thanking it instead for carrying me this far. The sixth thing I stopped caring about, and this is the one that matters most, was needing to understand why. Why did my daughter Rebecca die at 34? Why did she have to leave behind 2 little boys who still ask about her? Why did Dottie have to have that stroke in 2015 that stole half her words? Why do good people suffer and cruel people prosper? I spent years demanding answers. I read theology books. I argued with pastors. I shook my fist at the sky more times than I can count. And then I stopped. Not because I found answers, because I realized the asking was destroying me. Some things just happen, not for a reason, not as part of some grand design. They just happen. And my job isn't to understand why. My job is to keep living, keep loving, keep showing up for the people who are still here. That acceptance didn't erase the pain, but it let me carry it without being crushed. Here's what all of this comes down to. Everything I stopped caring about was weight I chose to pick up. Nobody forced me to need approval. Nobody made me chase being right. Nobody required me to keep score, harbor resentment, fight aging, or demand explanations from a silent universe. I picked up every one of those stones myself, and I could have set them down any time I wanted. I just didn't know I had permission. You have permission, right now, today. You don't have to wait until you're 89, until your knees ache and your friends are memories and your time is almost gone. You can choose peace now. You can stop caring about what doesn't matter and start living for what does. Tell me in the comments what you're still carrying. What weight are you ready to set down? I read every single comment, sometimes twice. It's become my evening ritual, sitting here with my coffee, reading your stories. Makes an old teacher feel like he's still teaching something worth knowing. And if any of this meant something to you, subscribe. Not for me. Do it for the person you'll be in 20 years. Give that future self a head start on the wisdom you'll need. If you know someone who's drowning under weights they don't need to carry, share this with them. Sometimes we need someone else to give us permission to let go. Here's the truth I want to leave with you. The life you're looking for is already here. It's just buried under everything you think you need to care about. Start digging, start releasing, and I promise you, what you find underneath will be worth every single thing you let go.